sin right now, but if you know there's a lot of Christians who do believe it's sinful, then why still do it? So it shouldn't even be an issue. So if there's a practice that makes other Christians offended, we should be willing to set it aside for their benefit. So what use is being a Christian if a preacher smokes just as lost sinners do? So if we live our lives that are in ways that are going to affect other people in a wrong way, we should just stop doing these things. Point 4, the use of tobacco is a sin because it enslaves the will and puts one in a yoke of bondage to the lust of the flesh. And that's a very, very powerful point. The main reason tobacco is wrong, not just because of the bad things it does to our body, but because it enslaves, it's addictive. And we are not to be addicted to anything. There's one verse that says about addiction. Paul says he was addicted to the ministry. If you're going to be addicted to something, you be addicted to the ministry of God. But don't be a slave to any practice, whatever it is. So, if you are enslaved by this habit, then God is not your complete master. Whatever else has that control over that part of your life becomes a master. Let's look at Romans chapter 6 and verse 12. Sister Jovi, would you read that verse for us, please?
Let not sin therefore reign in your mortal body, that ye should obey in the lust thereof.
That's a good point here. And go ahead and read verse 13 for us, please, too.
Neither yield ye your members as instruments of unrighteousness unto sin, but yield yourselves unto God as those that are alive from the dead, and your members as instruments of righteousness unto God.
So we're not to let sin reign in our bodies. And tobacco is definitely something. The addiction to tobacco is definitely that can reign over a person's body. I joke, kind of jokingly with my friends who smoke, I said, look, I couldn't afford to be a smoker. You're spending, what, $5, $6 a pack on this? And every second that you get off of the phone, it's funny, they have these things at work. We're salesmen, basically. We're telemarketers. We're reading a script, trying to sell a product. And sometimes they'll give away prizes. Sometimes they'll give away money as incentives to help you, encourage you. But one of the most popular things they do is they give 5-minute break passes. For if you get a sale, they'll call out for, all right, for the next 2 hours, anyone gets a sale gets a 5-minute break pass. And y'all get mine. And I walk around for 5 minutes. I don't know what to do with it. I'm just like, okay, go walk around, say, hey, hi, how you doing? Talk to my friends, go back and sit down. But people go crazy to get those 5-minute break passes. And you say, well, why? Well, we're a lot like children. You know, we like to get off the phone, not do our work. But really, the main thing they do with them is, as soon as they get a 5-minute break pass, they slap it down on the desk, they run outside, puff that cigarette, and come back in. Feel better now. And you look at these and you say, is that the way you really want to live your life? To be a slave to a little bitty stick? You know, and I asked them, I have a friend who, my coworker, he's not a Christian, but witness to him, he's going to church, so I'm glad to hear that. He's getting there, but he'd been trying to quit smoking. And he just and I can see the battle with him. The day he falls, he feels guilty, but he decided on his own, look, this is not the way, and that's what he brought him. He said, I don't like being under the control of something else. He's one of these guys that really likes to be in control. He's studying to be a lawyer, and he wants to be in perfect control of everything he does. And he's getting rid of cigarettes because they're addictive. And this is a lost man talking about it. So we shouldn't be under the bondage of other things. It says that our members should not be yielded as instruments of unrighteousness unto sin, but yield yourselves unto God as those that are alive from the dead. That's what we have to remember. We no longer have to sin. A lost person, they have no choice. They're dead. They cannot do anything to help themselves. They can only sin. We have been given the power of God in our lives, and we can live victorious over sinful practices. With us, it's a choice. So, let's look at John chapter 8 and verse 34. Sister Josephina, would you read that verse for us, please?
Jesus answered them, Verily, verily, I say unto you, whosoever committeth sin, is the servant of sin.
So whosoever committeth sin is the servant of sin. And I don't know about you, but I don't want to be a servant of sin anymore. I want to be a servant of God, because God's a much better master. We all know what sin does. Sin destroys. Sin kills. Sin hurts and maims. The Bible talks about the pleasure of sin for a season. It's fun for a while. And I've always been puzzled. Even as a lost person, I never really got the allure of tobacco, thankfully. I didn't have to fight cigarette addiction because I never started smoking. I never even took the first puff. I just smelled the others and that's one thing I think I'll just skip. Y'all go ahead. But I don't know what it is to fight that. I don't see the attraction in it. Now, we all have our sins that we fight against. The devil knows just what kind of lure to try to trap us. But I'd rather not be the one who follows sin, because I know the consequences of it. Sin always leads to destruction and death in our lives. It always leads to that which is bad. It brings us farther from God. We need to be servants of God and come closer to Him. So if you've become enslaved by a habit, you're not enslaved by righteousness, but you are enslaved by sin. Whatever enslaves your mind, your will, your body, so that you cannot control yourself and your desires, is sin. Point 5. It is a consensus of opinion among most spiritual and useful Christians, and most churches, they will not call a pastor who uses tobacco. We must live a separated life to be used of God. Let's look at Isaiah chapter 52 and verse 11. Isaiah 52. And Brother David, would you read Isaiah 52:11 for us, please?
52 verse 11. Depart ye, go ye out from thence. Touch no unclean thing. Go ye out of the midst of her. Be ye clean, that bear the vessel of the Lord.
So here God commands, His command, if we're going to be servants of His, to not touch the unclean things, but to be clean, to bear the vessels of the Lord. And we have already learned we're the temple of God, but God also calls us vessels. We want to be clean vessels to be used of God. When you're going to serve someone in your house, you wouldn't get a dirty plate out of the sink and say, here you go, I got some food for you. You wouldn't think of doing that. That would be the farthest thing for your mind. That would be an insult to your guest. In fact, you're probably like, Mom, did you clean everything up before they got there? I remember with Mom, we would be cleaning closets. Like, Mom, they're not coming in the closet. But if they did, it's going to be clean. That's the way Mom was, and that's good practice. When someone comes over, you want to clean up. You want to have a good impression on your guests. Their guests, you're trying to honor them by your attentions, and everything wants to be nice for them. If we want to be used by God, we need to make sure that our lives are clean. We don't want to be a dirty vessel, so God has to overlook us and say, well, maybe next time. Maybe next time I can use you, but not right now. So we need to be careful not to touch the unclean thing. Point 6. It is a sin to spend money for tobacco, which ought to be spent for something more useful, as is so often the case. And this is a very clear thing.